Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Josh, and we're going to talk about my February wrap up, all the books that I read in February. So this month I read 10 books, and the page count was, I think, 3,800 roughly, under 4,000, and this is the lowest amount of books I've ever read, lowest amount of pages and books, I think, that I've read in a month ever since I've started my channel just over a year ago. I don't know what it was about February, but I did not achieve all of my goals. I participated in 2 different readathons, but technically 3 if you count the Black Queenathon prompt of just read one book by Black author. I also participated in the Black Lit Challenge as well as the Blackathon Challenge, and I think I succeeded in... No, I didn't. Shoot. There were several things I did not achieve, and maybe I'll review it when we're done. But of the 10 books that I read, I'm going to rank them, or I have ranked them, from what I would consider at the moment, which is this could change in the future, best to worst, just so you can get my most excited reads first, because I know a lot of people might not stay the whole time. So let's get to what I did read. I think there was a good amount of nonfiction this month, which is, I guess, good. I don't know. I don't have a lot of nonfiction planned for March. Okay, so the first book is All Boys Aren't Blue by George M. Johnson. I think I would give this between 4.5 and 5 stars. I really loved this book. I mean, I think for all the reasons everyone's already said about it, it really explores Johnson's gender identity, growing up as a queer black boy who now identifies as non-binary. Basically what it means to have that identity, the aspects that comes with that, from the good and the bad, and what it's like to try and just be yourself. And this was so beautifully written, so expertly told, that it was able to connect to on so many great levels. I think the only reason I want to get 5 stars, maybe, I don't know, the writing or the structure, I'm not sure. It isn't like a full 5 star, but I would say definitely a 4.5 star, I think. It's hot. Why am I wearing this sweatshirt? Next, I read Going to Meet the Man, the last set of short stories in this collection of the Library of America, which is James Baldwin's short story collection. And I tell you how excited and also surprised I was when I realized how much I loved this. Honestly, this was definitely in close second, if not tied, with All Boys Aren't Blue, and being first place this month as the best book that I've read. And I think part of that is because this short story collection really encapsulates all the different areas and regions that Baldwin is able to explore. And this is my first impression with Baldwin. I was worried that I was setting myself up to fail, because I know, one, it's still classic work, so it might be somewhat esoteric to me, but also it's not a work that I hear a lot about. So I was worried that maybe I was going to be sort of muddying the waters, if that's the right word here, in picking a book that may not be his best. But either way, I thought it was so beautiful. And I tell you, like, this book is me. The story just hits me like a moving truck in the emotions I was able to feel. I just did not see it coming. The range of emotions and just the extremeness of it from the stories that he tells, it's just, oh, so beautifully written, so well told. It's such an imaginative mind exploring such really deep and sometimes dark concepts. Some have to do with race and what it's like to be a black person in America, and of course the dynamics back when this was written, I think in the 1960s, just where my parents were born, which I guess would be right before the Civil Rights Act. And in addition to that, there were other stories that explore other types of concepts, other themes rather. I'm not sure if I could name them off the top of my head, but there was one about a 30-year-old man, maybe 35-year-old man, who was struggling with the identity of the fact that his brother has a son and a wife, and then he has nothing. He may have had someone once, but now he's just alone and not knowing what to do his life. And he talks about how, to his nephew, he is old, even though he's in his early 30s. And I'm thinking to myself, God, I'm being seen so hard here. God, I don't like this at all. I feel like, why is he doing this to me? That was just one of so many in here that I thought just worked really well. And then some of the stories, I think, went a lot darker than I was expecting, not just in the themes, but in the character work. And God, I mean, honestly, now I'm talking to myself and saying this should be the best one. Not All Boys Aren't Blue. I take it back. This is the top book. This is the second book. Okay, I stand by it. I'm sorry. I love the queerness, and especially the gender queerness of All Boys Aren't Blue, but just the range that existed within Going to Meet the Man. So good. Whew, God. I mean, it's hot, but also I'm like excited from that book, which is good. I need to get energized for this video. I haven't really wanted to film lately. Next is going to be 400 Souls, the community story, I think, edited by Ebony and the other author whose name I forget. This is a set of essays that basically, essays of sorts, that explores the community history of Black Americans from the 1600s to today. Basically, it was written in 2019 as a 400-year anniversary or remembrance of the 400 years of African American history. And each essay focuses on different aspects. Some have a more traditional, I think, broad look at that one period they're looking at. I think they tend to be writing, I think it's a 50-year period. But others take different approaches. Some people have different ways of telling the story or telling the narrative. Some are more fictional-like, I think, if not quite fictional. And also some are more esoteric in the topics they're covering. Because I think, in general, I think the book is meant to bring attention to things that are often overlooked in history. But I don't think that's the only things. There were times where it was exploring, so I think, some big ideas that are probably fairly well known in history. Overall, it was so beautifully told, and the way it all fit together, I thought, worked really well as an anthology. I also felt like the essays really complemented one another really well, despite being so different often and being by so many different types of authors and experts. And then when you wove in the poetry, which I thought originally was going to be like certain periods just be told in a state of poetry, but instead it's like every 100 years. I'm not sure. There was like quarters or something that was split into being recapped by a certain piece of poetry, and we had this throughout the book, sort of setting the book into different parts, and it all fits so well together, so beautifully told. And the narrators, we had so many great narrators. Some of them were by the authors themselves. Some were just by different narrators who are like fairly well known, of course, like Bonnie Turpin, among others. I think Robin Miles, Dominique, what's his name? I don't remember. He narrated Stellar Sea and other books. Actually, the same guy, I think, who narrated Coming to Meet the Man. So a lot of amazing narrators, and I think if you're looking for some great narrators to look out for, that's a great anthology to check out. Not to like pivot or go on a tangent here, but personally, when I find a really good narrator, I will actively seek out books that are narrated by them. I will make a point to either get to those sooner, or maybe either get to them sooner if they're on my shelf, or maybe prioritize buying them sooner because of that. Because I recognize how powerful an experience can be made by or defined by a good narrator. I don't think a good book needs a good narrator to be good, but I do think it can save a bad book in some ways, and also just heighten a good book in a lot of ways. And for that reason, this audiobook, highly recommend, along with the book itself. I should mention this was an ARC that I read that I got from NetGalley. This was originally going to be presented in a NetGalley reading vlog, or actually just a reading vlog, and I think I actually recorded my thoughts to it, and the vlog ended up falling apart. I am doing a NetGalley vlog this month in March, and I may try and throw in some clips of my thoughts then. But for now, these are my thoughts. I do recommend the book. Personally, I didn't think it was as effective a piece of history as Ebony Rex Kinney's other book, but I'm not sure if it's entirely meant to be just like a historical book. It's meant to be much more than that. It's less, I think, academic in structure or in general. So next we have Brit Bennett's The Vanishing Half. I gave this, I want to say, between 4 and 4.5 stars. I really like this. First off, the writing, gorgeous, beautiful. It's easy to see once I've read this why it's so popular, not just because the story itself is so thought-provoking and the themes it explores so thought-provoking, but because of the fact that I think it is very accessible in its writing, that I could see how this gets such a broad audience. It is a literary work that I think sometimes literary works can be difficult to get into or to follow, and I felt like the way in which Brit Bennett's able to navigate the story, that is jumping between timelines, between perspectives, between these two sisters, both who are light-skinned, one who pursues a life where she embraces her black identity, and one who tries to hide it, tries to fit into white society. And it all weaves in together so beautifully, and it's so intergenerational, which I think also 400 Souls is as well. You can consider that intergenerational. That fits into one of the prompts that for Blackathon. But it's just so well told, so beautiful and beautifully written, so accessible, and the fact that I think I was able to follow it so easily despite being so complex in nature, speaks really highly of Brit Bennett's ability to write an effective story. So that's my thoughts on this book. I have generally only good things to say about books this month, besides like mild criticism. So it was a good month. I guess a high value month, if a low quantity month. Next, we're going to have a 4.5 star again book. It's going to be Michelle Obama's Becoming. I don't have a cover for this. Becoming by Michelle Obama. This was so beautiful. I had a whole entire reading vlog about this, so I won't fixate too much on this. Maybe I'll just put up a cover here. This one I think was my favorite in the reading vlog. It interwove a little bit of politics, but honestly I didn't like it for that. I think what it really shined with was just getting to see Michelle Obama share herself with us, which was such a beautiful experience. Be able to understand her and how she got to where she was. But also I think her narrative is not just beautiful, but it's also very inspiring in a lot of ways. And also gives us an extra insight into her life, into her connection to the American public, and it makes me just adore her even more. And it's easy to see how she is so loved by so many. Next, I would put Obama's book, Barack Obama's The Promised Land, and this one was better at the politics, naturally, because it was literally all about politics. But there was, I think, some rose-colored glasses going on in here, if not some just misrepresentation. I do tend to give him the benefit of the doubt and think that he was just trying to be honest, but also tending to have like just a biased perspective, because I'm not sure if he's entirely open about how great everything he did was. Don't get me wrong, I liked Obama. I don't hate him. I'm not the kind of person who thinks that he broke a bunch of promises. I mean, I think he made promises he was hoping to get to, and he found out that there were limitations to what he can do. And even when there weren't limitations, there were, I mean, it wasn't just legal limitations, but also legal and political limitations. It was realizing that the answer that he thought he had was as the right answer may not have been as easy to get as he would have liked. But big picture, I loved it as a political work. I don't think it works as well as a standalone book as his wife's, but I think they're close second. They work really well together, I think. Honestly, I'd recommend Becoming before this book, just because this book basically just goes in depth of what's there. So it's like you want to start with the simple politics and then dig in deeper. And I think it also helps you get a better perspective of Michelle as she fits into this bigger narrative, which is a big part of the logistics of getting into politics and then trying to handle it on the family side. I could go deeper, but I'm going to stop because, like I said, I have a whole vlog for that. Next, I would say this is a 4-star, a low 4. This almost got 3.5. This is the 5th autobiography or memoir by Maya Angelou, and it is all God's Children Need Traveling Shoes. And one reason I didn't love this one, which I think is a problem with some of her more obscure or less well-known memoirs, is that because they're being a narrative of her life, there's not always like a clean point to begin or to end the story of this sect of her life. And I think it makes for a somewhat not well structured book in those situations. That said, the concepts explored here, I think, like all of them, are all so thought-provoking. It's hard not to give it a 4-star, despite not loving the overall structure, especially since we're getting her in the time of the Civil Rights period. She gets to meet people like Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, and we get to see her mindset during this period as she contemplates this idea of peaceful protest versus violent protest, or resistance. And it was also her time as she's living in Africa, which I think we get a good perspective of that too in the last book. I think I like this more just because of the beginning to get the insight into the Civil Rights movement and her connection there. The book, I listened to the e-text reader. I didn't have an audiobook, but there is an old audiobook that I found for this, narrated by Lynn Thigpen, who is an old narrator who died in, I think, 2005 or 2008 or something. She narrates Parable of the Sower. If you recognize that, I loved her voice there, so I was hoping to get it. And I actually purchased this on audio tape, and I bought a tape to MP3 player because I want to listen to it, even if it wasn't the best ever. I wanted to experience it with that voice, just because, like I said, I think a narrator can really help define a book and reshape the experience, especially when it's a narrator that I feel like I have a connection to for some reason. Next, we have The Breakthrough by Eiffel. This one, 4-star. I'm realizing now that I don't think this was any quite close to 3.5 star, so maybe I would put this above Maya Angelou's book. I made this stack like a couple days ago, and I'm coming back to it, so my feelings will change. That's one reason why I take this list of best to worst is relative. And this was still a solid book. It worked really well as a companion novel, as a prequel to Obama's book, and even I think in some ways Michelle's book, just because it gives us an idea of the politics of basically race politics, black politics, particularly like when it comes to civil rights era politicians, and how Obama was basically a different kind of candidate, as in he wasn't like those that came before him in the civil rights movement. He had a different approach to politics, largely around acknowledging race less directly. And there's a big conversation about his role, his lead up to here, but also how he fit into the bigger picture and people's perspective of that. This book, I think when I first heard about this and how many people interpreted it at first, was that when Eiffel was just talking about how amazing it is, like racism is cured. Obviously it's not the case. There's not a debate in this book about is this a cure of racism. It's just an accepted fact that of course it's not. That's absurd. It's more about exploring the politics of the politicians, focusing as a journalist just on this and on these figures in this journey of trying to reach some level of equality in politics. And of course she narrates it herself. And as I say in the vlog, if you know Gwen Eiffel, you can start to love her voice. 2 more books. Rings of Ebony, I'm gonna give 4 stars. You don't need this, you have to cover here. And I like this book. I do think because it's YA, I didn't connect to it as strongly as I would have liked to, because I guess I've struggled more with YA books. And it made it be that the book's not meant for me. That said, I thought the book was well written. I found it surprising. I thought it was going to go in certain directions, and it consistently surprised me. So it's very creative. I think it takes some similar ideas from other types of YA fantasy books and sufficiently works to make it her own in the way the story is crafted. And it's really thought-provoking. I think I may read the next book. It really depends, because I'm not sure how invested I am to the characters. That was part of the reason why I think I didn't give this more. But I still did really enjoy it, and I thought it was a really fascinating exploration of these different themes, this life. I'm not really giving you any details in my... This is a story about a young woman whose mother dies, and I believe she finds out she has a connection with this magical world. Or maybe she already knew. I can't remember whether or not, how much she knew about the magic before she came to this world. But basically she got, I think once her mother died, she got introduced to this world. It's almost like a magical school in a way, but there's also a huge discrimination between this world and the real world, and the rules of how you can use it. And she doesn't fit here because this world is very, very white. I don't remember if it was exclusively white. I do believe that it was largely discriminated on the basis of skin color, not just class or magic. And I might be remembering that wrong. And so she's forced to live in this world that she doesn't really fit into because of where she grew up, where her mother's from, and her skin color as well. It creates opportunity for this author to explore some really interesting themes in some really effective ways. Lastly, I'm going to give 3.5 stars to The Underground Railroad. Unfortunately, I could not love this book. I read it for a book club this month that I had with some friends, and this is the second Colson Whitehead book that I have read, and it is literary in nature like the other book, and I think I struggled to connect to it for that reason. I thought the world was really interesting, and the story itself was thought-provoking and interesting and captivating, but I think it was also hard for me to, I guess, stay connected and follow all of the details because of the way in which the world was framed. But that said, I still think it was very effective in what it was trying to do in getting across the themes it was trying to explore, and making me feel like I was really there. I guess helped me connect or realize or see this world realized, and use his approach to try and get a new perspective to the world that hasn't previously been done, and how he explores the Underground Railroad. I'm not sure if that's a great review. I feel like maybe it sounds good if you haven't read the book, but if you have read the book, you might think, Josh, you could do better than that. What's wrong with you? But you know, I'm dead right. This is why I get so stressed about these wrap-ups, because I feel like I'm not prepared to talk about them after waiting so long. Even when I'm reading them, I'm not sure I'm prepared to talk about them, especially with the lower rated books, more literary works I sometimes struggle to connect to, which means I struggle to follow a lot of the details. Those are the 10 books that I read. 10 books, so nice and clean for a list, but definitely, unfortunately, I did not meet all of my goals. I did not finish River Solomon's books, did not finish Roxanne Gay's book, which means I didn't get a disability rep. I did not reread The Death of Vivek Oji or the group book for the literary fiction and nonfiction group in Black Blackathon, which means I did not get that prompt or get a Nigerian region book read. That was the goal for the Black Lit Readathon. So I maybe filled 2 or 3 of the prompts for Blackathon, and I'm pretty sure I still got the 4 I needed, 4 points for the Black Lit challenge, which you can see on my TBR what those challenges were, or just watch our video. But you know, the goal isn't like to win anything. The goal is just to use these as a motivator to sort of how we, I think, frame our TBR, and as a fun way, I guess, to be involved in the community, in the conversation, in the type of reading we're reading. That's everything that I read. I hope you found my reviews valuable. Let me know what you read this month. What's your favorite book? What's your least favorite book? Either one can be fun to talk about, honestly. But as always, have a great day and stay safe, and I'll see you next time.